Okay, good afternoon, and great to be here. Thank you very much. And wow, this is great to see so many people here, which is very, very important, because you're going to hear me say in a little bit, you know, that this is your process. This is not the board's or the management's process. This has to be the whole clubs and communities process. So let me just tell you that I work for a group called Copeland and Keebler. There are 5 of us that I think we figured out we have 150 years of experience in the club industry. This is all we do. We work with clubs and club communities all throughout the nation. I was in San Francisco and Pittsburgh last week, although the majority of the work that I do is here in Florida. Obviously there's 700 clubs in the state of Florida, so that's enough to keep us very busy. But I personally worked with 50 different clubs, communities last year, and visited over 125. And with that, we get a first-hand view of where we get to see, change the slide for me, please, thanks. We get to see the good, the bad, and sometimes the highly dysfunctional. Well, we're not here to talk about the highly dysfunctional. We're here to talk about the good. And what we really see, the most common element that we see in strategic planning and clubs is a club and community with a very active, living strategic planning process. And it's interesting because I do this both for gated and non-gated communities, but also club communities with or without golf courses. So it's all the different ones, but it still really goes together. And I will tell you that I started doing this 25 years ago when I was up in Grosse Pointe, and there was no such thing as someone like me doing this in the industry, because clubs didn't bother to look at the club like a business that you really are. And when you look at the total gross volume, and in fact even more so, I'd ask you to take a look at the total net assets of this entire community. That's a big business. You know, that's in the many, 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 many millions of dollars. So what we have found, though, is that this process has really been adopted by the private club industry. And I'm pleased to say that today, you know, well over 60% of club communities are involved in this process, and it's growing every day. So my favorite saying, and looking at the age in the room, very similar to mine, you know, we remember The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland, and we look at, are we thinking strategically? Because as Lewis and Carroll said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Well, hopefully it's not the yellow brick road. We want to have a good roadmap that gives us a solid path and solid direction. So what are the issues that we are looking at and will continue to look at over this process of 6 or 7 months that we're going through this? Well, first of all, we look at governance. How is the overall governance of the club and the community? And you know, we talked about the HOA versus the club board. And while they are 2 separate functions, folks, you're joined at the hip. And while they're again 2 separate, you have to be closely intertwined together, because it's all for the betterment of all of you in this room. For the club side, we look at board and committee job descriptions and understand who's responsible for what. You're going to see later, we've worked on a mission and a vision statement. We're constantly reviewing. You have the right membership structure. Obviously, and it's an important point here that I want to talk about. And I'm going to make this twice, but that's why it's so important. A strategic plan is not a capital plan, but it drives a capital plan. So we're not up here to say, well, we need, you know, all new this or all new that. But 5 or 10 years from now, and let me, again, this is another one that I'll emphasize twice. Anybody go downtown this last week for Halloween? Okay, what was right in the middle of the street? Pickleball court, right? Right in the middle of 5th Avenue. 5 years ago, anybody hear of pickleball? No, it's the fastest growing sport in the United States. So that's what we're doing, is looking at where we want to be 5 and 10 years from now. We're going to hear a little bit about a competitive analysis, which is very, very important. And we'll be looking out to the future, as we said. So what are the things we consider? As I said, it's a roadmap, hopefully not the Yellow Brick Road, but it's a roadmap, particularly in this case because your boards are constantly changing. So it gives you a plan that has continuity to it. As I said, it's not a capital plan, but it really helps you to drive that plan. Important here, and this really goes to the mission, it really helps determine who you are and what you do, who you do it for. It's in essence your marketing plan, and that's another one of those that 15, 20 years ago, a marketing plan in a private club. Well, I worked for both the developer side and I've worked for member-owned, and really learned from that developer side. We had to have a strong, strong marketing plan. It's strategic in nature, but it helps give Don and his staff the directions for the annual operational plan. It really helps you to manage and prepare for change, but not just for the sake of change. It's really about being proactive rather than reactive. This last one is very, very important. It really gets some staff, team members, and members as a whole together on the same page with common goals and shared responsibilities. But again, it helps you clarify those goals. Where are we going, and who's going to be responsible? I'm going to show you a real quick template, little matrix in just a little bit of how we develop an action plan. Pat was saying, referring to my time in Michigan, and it's interesting because I've been working with numerous clubs up there, and there are 4 clubs in Detroit that came out of the recession stronger than any, and I'll probably find somebody in this room that's a member of 1 or 2 of those, but this is in my opinion, but Detroit Athletic Club, whoops, that's the one when you're watching a Tigers game, that's the athletic club in the background. We don't talk about Tigers these days, nor the Lions back. But it's a Detroit Athletic Club. It's Oakland Hills. It's my old club, the Grosse Pointe Yacht Club. It's the Country Club of Detroit. They're all doing very, very well. And no community, no metropolitan area was harder influenced by the recession than Detroit was. But what was the common factor that helped them get through that? They had an active living strategic plan. And having spent, I've had a home in Detroit for 30 years, you're going to have the recession. You're going to have the downturn. It's not a if, it's a when. And the plan allowed them to be prepared for that. And we're no different here in Southwest Florida. It really gives you a very good basis for decision making. And as I said, it's one of the top common denominators we find in the private club industry. So what's one of the big questions we ask about strategig planning? What's our brand? What do we want our club, our community to look like? What is it now and in the future? And who are our members and our residents? Well, it's real easy to look at now. All I have to do is look around this room. What are they going to look like 5 and 10 years from now? And one of the things we always like to do is we like to look at, and here, let me give you an example. The average age of a club community in the state of Florida is 68. The average age of a new resident is in the early to mid 50s. Well, you can think about that and think about yourself when you first started coming down here and you decided to make a purchase. Well, when the average age is 68, that means I have residents in their upper 70s and 80s. And if I have residents joining that are in their 50s, that's a 30-year spread. So that's another whole generation almost. So it's important that we understand what we need to do to satisfy our current members and residents, but also looking forward to those new residents. What do we want our club to be in 5 and 10 years from now? What will the demographics look like? What will, whether it's the governance, whether it's the facilities, whether it's the programs, what needs to be done to meet what's known as the #1 metric in the private club industry, high member and resident satisfaction? How do I keep you happy campers? And interesting, again, referring to Southwest Florida, there are 160 private clubs in Lee and Collier County. In fact, actually a couple more coming online. There's more golf holes per capita in Naples than anywhere in the world. All right, but there's a lot to choose from, right? So if you think not determining your brand is not important, you're mistaken. There's a saying going, if you don't determine your brand, somebody else will do it for you. So that's why we need to make sure we look at this. So the brand also goes back to your mission and your vision and your core values. The one that's up here, I like using this. I call this the poster one because it puts them all into one for everybody to see. I like to see this on your website, and you know, this is who we are. This is Eagle Creek. In this particular case, I use this one. It's a very unique one. It's a club in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's the youngest club I have dealt with today. The average age of the club is 41. And as you can imagine, there are more kids running around there than Carter has liver pills, right? So what goes with that is they just spent $3 million on what they call an FAC, Family Activity Center, right? That was the basis for the decision. That was their club. So again, it's the reason we do so. Now, the next one is interesting. Next slide, please. So why in the heck do I have Ford Motor Company up there? Well, I have it up there because of you. I happened to have the pleasure to meet Alan Mullally a couple of years ago when I was working for the Collier family. Took him over to play golf at Old Collier. And as those of you who spend time here in the summer, as it usually does, it rained in the afternoon for a bit. So we all came in and sat down in the grill room. I got to talk to him about his business philosophies. You know, he was at Boeing and Ford. Well, a year ago, July, he was retiring. He was being interviewed by Charlie Rose from the CBS Morning Show. And Charlie said to him, so tell me, what was so special about what you did? What was your secret that made your team such a success? And of course, his response was, I did. I had a great team. But he said, I also had one Ford, one plan, one team, one goal. And to me, all of a sudden I said, aha, this is really a club. Again, one plan, one team, one goal for the entire club community. To where I say, again, it's not the board's plan or the management's plan. It has to be the whole club and community's plan. Jerry's going to talk to you in a minute about the survey. And we're also going to be having focus groups. All I can tell you is, I assure you, your board wants your feedback, your input. So the decisions that are made are based on that. So please do not say, oh, it doesn't matter, because it does matter. So I ask you to participate in every way we can so it becomes the Eagle Creek plan. So we want to get everybody working together, all on the same page. Now it goes to my favorite saying. The reason we're here is the purpose of a plan is not to produce a plan, not to produce, I've got a big notebook over there. Yeah, we'll have that. It's to produce results. And really what we want to do is not leave you with a plan, but leave you with a living process where you're constantly updating and evaluating. I was talking to a gentleman in the room from a club that I did some work with and continue to work with up in Buffalo. And you know, they are constantly updating and evaluating, reviewing, and saying, okay, where do we need to go from here? And that's really what we want to accomplish. So, and the next one is simply a real, forget what's on there, other than the fact that what we're going to do is determine what the key issues are, what the goals and objectives of each issue would be. What strategies and tactics do we need to come up with to achieve our goals and objectives? Who's going to be responsible, and what's the timeline? That's what makes an action plan go from an action plan to results. The other important word, it's called accountability, and we're going to talk, that'll be an important part. So let me just share with you, just for a moment, some very quick trends. Why am I talking about trends? Because this is what we're seeing in the club industry, and just like I was referring to pickleball. Okay, and traditions are very important. Particularly, I have some clubs that I work with that are 100+ years old. So yes, those traditions are important, but we constantly need to be evolving. Before, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have iPads, we didn't have everything that kept us connected. Denim in clubs, that was unheard of. So there's just been a lot of change, and what we really need to do is make sure we stay relevant to what's going on today. Dining, how many formal dining venues do we have here in Naples? What do people really want? That casual, why did I come here? When I first arrived here, I was at Bay Colony. I never saw one of my members dressed like this. Unfortunately, if they were going to a funeral. We came down here to relax and have a good time. Membership marketing is so critical. And even in a community like this where you're so tied together, there's going to be constant turnover. And what's our brand? Who are we, and how do we convey that to the community? Non-golfing, and you're doing this with what you're doing right now with Crystal Lake. Your non-golfing amenities. Golf is not king anymore. I sat right across and talked to him then one-on-one afterwards with Jack Nicklaus 3 weeks ago, telling me I am worried about the game of golf. We have to keep it relevant. We have to make sure we keep it more interesting. So what are we doing? We're making sure we keep you all engaged in something. Whether you play golf or not, we need to keep you engaged in the club, and everything that we do needs to be relevant. So some of the things we surveyed, we did a survey recently throughout the state. Slide, please. Okay, and obviously we know in Florida we have an aging membership. And are the baby boomers still coming down here? Well, there's good news, folks, and I'm one of those, about the aging membership. That means I plan to be here a lot longer, all right? We all do. So there's that natural aging. But how do we make sure we're constantly replenishing with new people? Next slide, please. Aging infrastructure. Just like you, most of the clubs and communities in this area are 20 to 30 years old. I live in a young one, it's only 13, but we're still doing, a lot of things. And I will tell you that what is done in a community has, a direct impact on property values. Best case example, I like to use the opposite. When Spanish Wells was taken over up in Naples, or Estero, by the bank, and you looked out your back window and there was dead grass, how would you like to be selling your home? You wouldn't. So, next slide. The reduction in golf, as I said, and so for the first time in history, golf has not become king. And there are 100,000 pickleball players right now in the United States, growing every day. The villages up in the Orlando area have over 100 pickleball courts. I was actually this morning walking my community areas, our amenities, to say, And in fact, in our case, we have a full court basketball court. We don't need a full court. We don't need half court. I just found a place for pickleball. So, but again, it's what can we do to offer those other amenities? And it's not only those amenities, it's all of the different programs. Because what are you here for? It's your lifestyle. That's what brought you to Florida. That's what brought us to Florida. My wife's favorite saying, and we live here. All right, but we need to make sure that we're reaching out to you and hearing from you what is important to you that keeps you active and engaged and involved in the community. A couple more slides and we're done. We talked about casual lifestyle, and it's how we blend all this together, and obviously being outside is so important to all the communities. Next. You're doing this right now. Health and wellness and fitness, it is huge. It is king. You know, well, pickleball may be growing faster, but I can tell you, I was in a community where and went up to the Pilates Center, and there was this gentleman in there, and I asked the trainer about him. He said, well, Mr. So-and-so is 90 years old, and he's here 3 days a week. So it's not, health and wellness and fitness is not just for the young kids. I'm 66, I swim every single day. You know, that's what is allowing us to live longer, to be healthy. So, other real important, and your club has done a very good job of this, and one of my duties is also to work with Don and look at the efficiencies that you have within the club and the community, and we are doing that. Because clubs aren't looking for, I don't want ways to cut back on things. I just want to make sure what we're doing very well. We're getting the best bang for our buck. So that's also important, and we're doing that. So what are we doing? The last slide I have for you here, this is where we are today. Back in August, we had board strategic workshops. Here we are today with our town hall meeting. And I don't know, it may be tomorrow, I may be off by a day or two. But obviously we're sending the survey out to the entire membership. I can't ask you again enough times. Please fill it out. We want at least a 50% response rate. It really is important to hear from you. And if your neighbors aren't here, you see them at, having a glass of wine later tonight, tell them the same thing, please. That's the most important thing that you can do. We're going to be doing some more workshops with management next month. Then we'll get the survey results back, and we'll have another one of these meetings to tell you what you said, to share it with you. Because again, the worst thing we could do is get all that and just keep it, to ourselves, right? So this is, and I will tell you, your board is very open with this process, and transparency is important. So we'll be sharing all of this with you. Then, the end of January, we're going to conduct focus groups. Again, the same thing, please. If I have to do 4 extra focus groups, I don't care. More the merrier. We need your input. We need your feedback. Then we'll take all of this and with another strategic workshop, come up with that a sample of action plan like you saw up on the screen, one that will produce results for Eagle Creek. And then when we finish all that, we'll come back to you and say, this is what we heard you say, this is what we are planning to do. So that's the process, and what I'd like to do now is turn it over to Jerry, let him talk to you about the survey, and I will be around afterwards. I'm happy, or if we have questions, in whatever way we are going to do this, I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can. So, thank you very much.